Hello again from the Peacesharing Europe 2021 conference. I'm Kat Lockman, International Director of Organizational Development at the Global Peace Foundation. We are ready to begin our last panel of today, entitled Online Safety and Digital Citizenship. Welcome to each of our panelists and audience participants. Thank you for joining us from all over the world. This session is being recorded. To set the context, in 2020, youth and educators, peace builders, and civil society partners witnessed an explosion in efforts to expand connectivity at schools and provide digital access to young people. With expanded connectivity, emerging online and mobile technologies brought unprecedented opportunities, but also risk in terms of content, privacy, and personal safety. The OECD cited cyberbullying, harmful content, and inappropriate content with contact with strangers as top concerns in an overview of recent developments in legal frameworks and policies. You can reference their publication, Protecting Children Online, for which we have shared a link in the chat box. There has been a broad discussion about equipping people with online safety training alongside expansions in connectivity and a strong focus on building the capacity and will of students and young people to act as positive forces as they learn, create, and interact virtually in the digital environment. Today, I look forward to hearing from each of our panelists about their insights and outcomes related to enhancing digital safety and online safety and digital citizenship, including highlights from projects with positive outcomes, best practices, and promising approaches. Our panel format will consist of short opening remarks of about 4 minutes from each of our esteemed panelists, followed by a moderated discussion. Feel free to check out our speaker bios. See the links in the chat box. Now, before we start, please allow me to introduce a short poll. It's on your screen now, so please let's take a few minutes, about half a minute actually, and respond to these questions. Thank you. We'll pause here and await your feedback. We appreciate you taking the poll. It does give us great feedback to tailor our future content. Okay, so now please join me in welcoming our first panelist, Dr. Lisa Schirch from Toda Peace Institute.
Thank you, Kat Lockman and the Global Peace Foundation. I'm really happy to be here today to talk with this global community interested in peace education and how that intersects with digital technologies and the global world on the internet. So my role at the Toda Peace Institute is to look into both the negative ways that digital technologies impact conflict and violence around the world, as well as the positive ways that we can use digital technologies for building peace. And we call that digital peace building, and we call technology used for peace, peace tech. I want to start with just 3 points on the intersection of digital safety and peace education. As Kat Lockman just described, there's all these negative impacts from social media in particular. There's disinformation, there's hate speech, there's cyberbullying, and there's also privacy concerns and addiction concerns where people really are holding their phones night and day and checking them all the time. So the first sort of segment of peace education relating to digital technologies is dealing with privacy settings and learning how to keep your privacy secure and understanding how social media works. These are free services because the users of social media are actually the product. Our information is being sold to advertisers who want to find people who have characteristics like each one of us individually. So social media companies are capturing information that every time we interact on social media, and they're using it to connect advertisers with our specific interests. So we have to understand that these technologies are built to capture our attention. And for many people, that leads to addiction and really difficult boundaries in terms of when we use them. So peace education is also about self-care, caring for ourselves and knowing our limits in terms of being able to keep ourselves secure online. What we know about social media is not only that it's addictive, but that it amplifies. So the algorithms that run social media platforms really amplify strong emotions. And often that includes hate speech and violent content and conspiracies. Those things get shared more often and they go viral more often. The other thing that we know about those algorithms is that false information travels faster than true information. So all of us, in terms of peace education, we need to understand that there's a lot of false information traveling on the internet. And we need to be checking everything that we share and that we see on social media to prevent rumors and sort of violent ideas from spreading. So first of all, that sort of digital safety is about privacy and understanding how social media works. Secondly, we need skills and we need to be able to practice these skills in what we call upstanding. Upstanding is the opposite of bystanding. So on social media, often we scroll and we read a lot of things. And if we see something harmful, we might be reluctant to intervene. An upstander is a human rights defender who works online. And when they see cyberbullying, they intervene, they speak up, they try to reach out to the person being bullied and to support them. There's a movement started in Europe. It's called #IamHere. And it's thousands of volunteers who are operating online. When they see cyberbullying, they use the #IamHere. They reach out to support the victim of the bullying, or if it's a whole group of people like Muslims or Jews who are being bullied, they will reach out to support that group. So first is digital safety, second is upstanding skills, and then the third category of peace education online are just plain conflict resolution communication skills that we can use online. Because we do see a lot of disinformation and hate speech, we have to know how to intervene in a way that holds the dignity of the person posting that information, but also defends those human rights. So it's kind of a two-handed approach of reaching out with the humanity of the other in mind, even if they're saying something hateful, and then trying to stop it in terms of protecting human rights. But we use listening skills, we learn speaking skills to sort of speak in a way that other people can hear us, ways that we can find common ground with people, even if we're disagreeing on social media. So a lot of our digital peace building is trying to bring our real world peace building skills in dialogue, facilitation, mediation, and bringing those online. So those are the three areas I wanted to briefly go over. I'm going to pass it off. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I really like the way that you were able to conceptualize that into three important things. That was very nice. Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Maryam Lawal from World Bank Digital Development Global Practice. Maryam, we would love to hear from you.
Great, thanks, Lisa. It's very good to be on this panel. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here today to join my fellow panelists and the audience to speak about online safety and digital citizenship. I think for me, the main thing that I would be covering today that touches or feeds into the thematic area of online safety and digital citizenship is digital skills. So the reason why I would be focusing on skills and literacy is that some of the building blocks for promoting online safety and also fostering digital citizenship centers around education for the youth in particular, and also making sure that we are leveraging the opportunity that the digital economy has presented to us to make sure that we are producing the tech savvy young people that we need to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are provided by a range of the digital tools and platforms that we use on a day-to-day basis. So we're all aware that, you know, the growing use of new technologies that range from things like artificial intelligence, cloud computing, robotics, and the Internet of Things, among others, are what are characterizing the fourth industrial revolution, which is most commonly known as the Industry 4.0. So within that, we know that things like digital platforms, digital infrastructure, digital financial services, digital entrepreneurship, and digital skills are some of the thematic elements that would be able to support the acceleration of the digital economy for mainly developing countries. We can see that there's a rise in the adoption and use of the digital economy within the industry, within the school sector, within health and social services, and many, many other areas of life, both for personal and professional purposes. So my idea today is to focus around digital skills and how that feeds into digital citizenship and online safety. So for digital skills, I think the basic thing that we need to understand around promoting digital skills, either through the formal education system or through things like vocational training programs or online opportunities to train children and young people, as well as reskilling some of our educators and our teachers to be able to use some of these technologies to deliver state-of-the-art opportunities and education curriculum to some of their students. This will then key into making sure that people have a very, very robust understanding of what it means to be online. What do we mean when we say, you know, I want to be online? What does it mean to say that we are creating a safe environment for young people as well as children, and also the wider citizens to thrive in an online platform? So we have to think about things like, you know, how do we develop an interactive online delivery system for educational programs? How do we implement a blended learning approach for both, for different categories of the education sector? How do we create assessments as well as personalized academic support in a digital area? How can we also implement a range of pilot testing and phased changes that come together with the era of digital transformation? So these are some of the things that I will be walking through shortly in our discussion session. I will keep quiet here and offer my thoughts in the upcoming discussion session. I will hand over to the next panelist now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maryam. So our next panelist is Nicole Punzi from Global Peace Foundation, where she is an organizational development associate focused on evaluation and research. Nicole, we'd love to hear from you.
Thanks, Kat. I'm so happy to be here with all the other panelists and with all of the participants to discuss this topic at such a critical time. You know, youth are online more than ever now, the technological advances and this shift to online learning that a lot of countries and school systems are leaning towards. But I think it's important to note that students are, this generation of students, they grew up on the internet. They're certainly tech savvy and can identify things like basic scams that might have been new, you know, a generation ago. But I think the risks have evolved in the past few decades, and there's these new challenges that I know Lisa already went over a few of them, and Maryam also discussed some of the skills, which I can also reiterate are really important for youth, for students, and then the educators and other community leaders or influencers that can help feed into that. So just some of those to briefly outline, I guess, some of those challenges, and then also the opportunities that we can leverage this new environment, this new digital environment for. Again, the spread of misinformation and other tactics that can stir up division and confusion. This is leveraged by politicians, leaders around the world to further the divide. And then similarly, this presence of echo chambers on social media due to these algorithms, again, that Lisa had mentioned, that they can show you news posts, friends that share the same interests and views. So you kind of get stuck in this community where you're only hearing your own opinions pushed back at you, reinforcing your beliefs and making it more difficult to kind of bridge that gap when you do meet someone who might have a varying idea or opinion than you. And a lot of these other offline risks and dynamics that are now being translated online, again, like cyberbullying and that dangerous group dynamic that can exacerbate it, that to an extent that might not be possible offline. So for instance, on social media, people across the world can see the bullying taking place, can pile on, can use the shield of anonymity to say things that they might not in person. Similarly with peer pressure also. And I just also want to highlight this another aspect, which is gender-based violence. Young women and girls disproportionately face violence and abuse online, and they have these unique risks like revenge porn or having their images manipulated to humiliate or sexualize them. And the impact can even be amplified when they also experience attacks on their identity. So that could be sexual orientation, race, ethnicity. So not only do the threats and abuse work to silence or censor their voices online, but can also impact them offline in terms of their physical safety or the ability to do their jobs. So keeping all of that in mind, there's also a lot of opportunities to take advantage of. So we're able to, as civil society organizations and non-governmental organizations, we can mobilize and convene larger groups of people more easily. We can help youth activists who now have so many platforms to advocate on and spread their voice further and organize a call to action. Can also promote civic engagement, building the capacity of youth to meaningfully participate, to connect with their local leaders, to be educated on electoral processes, politics, debates, and have some of these resources readily available. And then finally, also just having access to new cross-cultural ties, connecting with people across the world, which we all know is possible even, with this convening right now, but also, being able to share or discover those shared values and common interests, new perspectives, which kind of goes into the peace education aspect of it and how we can leverage this digital space. But again, that involves building the skills, the digital safety and online citizenship skills of youth to be able to take advantage of these opportunities and mitigate the risks. And anticipate and react to the challenges more effectively. So I'll stop there with that general overview and move over to the next person.
Great. Thank you so much, Nicole. Your insights are very appreciated. Now let me introduce Ijeoma Nwoke. She is an HCM Senior Solution Engineer at Oracle. We would love to hear from you.
Hi, thank you very much, Kat. I'm not going to take too much of your time, but for me, I like to focus more on young people and easy steps in terms of how you can take online safety. We know now that young people are no longer, we normally have partial conversations about online safety and digital citizenship, but if we fast forward to where we are now, with almost or even not every single conversation taking place online, the reality is young people are no longer a passive group that absorbs information and data in an alarming rate. What they are now is they're actively online, sharing that information, exchanging that picture, checking their emails, the list can go on. So we should know that online is where many people live for a significant amount of time, myself included. I think I spend about 10 or 12 hours a day online. A survey was done a couple of years ago, I think in 2013 by NICCY. And based on the survey, they found that an average person spends at least 3 hours a day on their mobile phones. I'm sure if we do that survey today, with a lot of people having more screen time, it would be about 5, 6. For me, I would say 8 hours a day on my smartphone. Let's take a practical example, for instance. We worry about our young people when they go out to ride their bicycles, they put on their helmets, they put on their ankle, their support. Myself included, I play squash a lot, 3 times a week. I always wear my ankle support and my knee support just to protect myself. So I'm already anticipating that risk, right? But around 5 hours a day, these young people and myself included, we sit online with all the opportunities and risk with no protection and no responsibility. We need to find ways and mechanisms that are effective, but also appropriate. For instance, just simple things that we do every day. We share private information without even knowing. So I take a picture in front of a car, in front of my house. Some questions you need to start asking yourself is, did I blur that plate number? Was my geolocation on when I took that picture? What digital footprint do I want to leave behind, which I like to call my digital tattoo? And what is the implication of posting that picture or commenting on something, right? So according to the Digital Citizenship Resource Platform, I came across this. They said, to empower young people to be better digital citizens, we must seek to integrate digital literacy into their educational lives as well. And this just touches on what Lisa said, and as well as Maryam. But first, we need to carry young people and educators along. They need to have a say. And for me, I think this is very vital, which I'll talk about later on in the panel session about some of the works we do at Oracle and myself as well. We must address these differences on different levels in terms of education. So how do we achieve this? 3 things for me. I think that this can be done through interactive activities and peer facilitated discussions where students and educators define key safety, what are the top privacies and best practices, and what are the digital citizenship concepts. Second of all, we shouldn't leave behind is parents and guardians. Parents and guardians need to be educated. They need to be kept up to date on what are the new techniques to be private. I'm sure you've come across in the news a lady's son who was introduced on Snapchat to a drug dealer and he overdosed and he just died, right? But a lot of us are learning from that, and we're learning how we can protect our children and learn how do we privatize their devices. What are the best ways to do that? How do we monitor their social activities as well? And last but not the least is educators. I can't say this more often. Our kids spend so much time with teachers and schools. I think that now students, and I think everybody, need to be part of this discussion in terms of what are the risks, what are the benefits of being online, which means they have to start having these topics or discussions designed into the curriculum of the schools. We all know today that young people are the real experts. I think Nicole mentioned that we're very tech savvy. We're the Generation Z, the millennials, and the industry, they produce these tools. But what they don't anticipate is young people take these tools and they manipulate these tools in ways we had never seen before. So as we discussed the best ways to be safe and productive online, we must make sure that everybody, and especially young people, participate in this process. Thank you very much, Kat, and on to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ijeoma. Your comments are very appreciated. And now we will move to the facilitated discussion segment of our session. I will be posing questions to our expert panel and directing each question towards an individual speaker for about a 3 to 4 minute response. So let's start with Lisa. Lisa, it's been a very challenging time, and I would be curious about the advice that you would give us about how can we empower students with the agency to navigate the digital space in a responsible and creative way?
Okay, great. Thanks so much to all the panelists. I really enjoyed your presentations, and I see we have a growing consensus around the world about what we all need to be doing and working, how we can work together. I think what's most useful for me at this point is to explain a program we ran last fall during the US election. As many of you know, the US is very polarized. We have violent conflict. People talk about civil war here. There's a sense of danger in our society. And as a US peace builder, we ran a contest. The Toda Peace Institute ran a contest in collaboration with Search for Common Ground and a bunch of other peace building organizations, inviting people to create digital peace content. So I put the link into the chat for everybody to see. So the Digital Peace Factory was a contest. We awarded cash prizes and had people vote publicly on which peace meme they liked the most. The idea here is we see so much disinformation, hate speech, all these conspiracies online. The peace builders of the world need to be filling digital spaces with positive content. And not only positive content, encouraging people, to build bridges across the lines of conflict, but also just teaching some basic conflict resolution skills. So doing our peace education online in creative ways through memes, little videos, TikToks. We are really hoping that this concept will take off in the years ahead. So we are looking for people to partner with. I'd invite everyone to join that Digital Peace Factory site because we're going to be running another round of this contest. The contest we ran last fall was just focused on people living in the US because it was around our US election. But we're hoping that other countries we can help support, running a contest like this in other places, and maybe partnering with governments or with technology firms to offer some prizes that really can incentivize young people in particular, because I think young people understand memes better than people my age. How do you create something that's funny and witty and possibly viral that will be spread, that inspires people to think about how they're communicating online and how do they prepare themselves and center themselves so that they can be positive forces for peace in the digital environment. Thanks.
Oh, thank you very much, Lisa. That sounds really creative. Uh, Maryam, you have such a unique perspective based on your role at World Bank. And I would be very curious to know how you would best advise educators to maximize the benefits of the digital environment, yet also understand the risk landscape.
Yes, thanks, Kat. That's a very interesting question, and one that also underpins some of the work that we have been doing that is centered around the 5 thematic areas that I mentioned previously. So these 5 thematic areas for leveraging the benefits that are accompanied by the digital economy are digital infrastructure, digital skills, digital platforms, digital entrepreneurship, as well as digital financial services. So we consider these to be the 5 core building blocks for any nation to be able to leverage some of the key components that will allow them to reap off the benefits that are accompanied with engaging in a digital economy. Some of the things that we are discussing today, so for example, online safety and digital citizenship are encapsulated within things like, so if you're talking digital infrastructure, it's not about providing, the backbone infrastructure for people to go online, but also making sure that you have arrangements in place that, for example, tackle issues of cybersecurity, and linked to that are also issues of cyberbullying. I will focus more on the one of the thematic areas, which is digital skills, because it links directly to some of the things that would feed into digital citizenship and online safety. So how do we ensure that we have citizens that feel safe online and are also to are also able to engage as digital citizens in a very productive manner, both for themselves as well as for their countries as well. So this takes us down to making sure that we have citizens, students, children, young people, vulnerable women, marginalized societies that are digitally enabled. And this is one of the core objectives that we have as part of our digital transformation initiative, making sure that citizens, governments, businesses are digitally enabled by 2030. But it's not about being digitally enabled. It's about also being safe to be online. And what does that take? You know, it takes skilling up people and teaching people, incorporating the curriculum to be able to make people understand, students and young people understand the importance of using digital technologies in a very safe and productive manner that is not harmful, but also allows one to feel like they have that digital tattoo that Ijeoma mentioned, and they're very confident in having that digital tattoo. So for us, digital skills represent one of the core capabilities of a digital economy. So because this is a mechanism through which citizens' voice are heard and amplified, and by which the government services can be redefined with a citizen-centric focus and with a co-creation approach. So it's a very participatory thing that also has a feedback loop between citizens, between governments, between education institutions, and between online providers of some of these training courses, or creating a delivery platform for providers. So when we talk skills, I think the main thing that educators need to be aware of are, you know, digital skills exist on a continuum. So you can have basic and foundational digital skills, you can have intermediate skills, you can have advanced, and you can have highly specialized digital skills. I think the key thing to understand is when we are targeting to promote online safety and digital citizenship, who are we focusing on? You know, I know that one of the key focus for today's discussion are the young people and youth. So within that, do we have young people who are digitally skilled? Do they possess the basic and foundational skills that are required to safely engage online? Do they possess some of the intermediate skills that are required if these are higher education students or young professionals going into the workforce? Or are these more highly specialized skills that are required to be acquired over time by virtue of what the digital economy requires from the labor force? So I think for me, I would say in terms of accelerating digital skills, like I mentioned before, developing countries stand to benefit the most, mainly because they have a very high youth population. And also they have an opportunity to, you know, radically revolutionize the way that education is delivered, especially, you know, what the COVID-19 pandemic has shown us is that virtually everything can move online, and we have to be able to survive online. So how do we do that? We have to make sure that we have online classrooms that provide access to the tools that students need. We have teachers that are adequately trained to be able to deliver some of the techniques that would come with making sure that students are digitally enabled. We have businesses that need to focus on reskilling and upskilling some of their workforce, particularly the young people who tend to spend a lot more time online. So I think for me, the core thing I would say that educators need to be aware of is when targeting skills is just understanding that continuum of skills. What aspect of that do you want to promote? How do you want to promote it? And also just focusing on a very good delivery approach that makes sure, you know, when people are skilled, they're able to understand what it means to be safe online. They're able to understand, okay, if I'm spending X amount of hours online, what's the impact of that on my personal life, on work, and on other things that I need to do? But also going beyond that, it allows people to have that voice and identity online, to be able to speak out against cyberbullying, to be able to defend others, to be able to make sure that they're escaping vulnerable and destitute situations. You know, having digital skills can ensure that citizens are able to achieve some of these things. Yeah, so I'll pause here for the next question for the panelists. Thanks, Kat.
Oh, thank you very much. So now let us hear from Ijeoma at Oracle. I would really love to know, based on your work, Ijeoma, what are some of the best practices or the most promising approaches that have emerged, especially over the last year?
Thank you for that question, Kat. First of all, is based on the work in terms of what Oracle Academy has been doing is we found that there's been a lot of focus just on people who study computer science, or you're doing a online coding course. You know, those are the people that get educated on online safety. But we forget that there are a lot of people, regardless of what course you're studying, you need to be part of that conversation. So what we've done is we've taken it from that angle to say we need to add people who are K-12 and in tertiary levels, regardless of what course you're studying, and bring them into this conversation. For me, when I educate some people or volunteer at some tech events or universities, is what the best practices I've really noticed are just teaching simple online safety, very simple online safety, not making it too complicated. Don't talk about algorithms and all the big stuff. For me, is teaching them to say, this is how you prioritize, this is how they can understand online safety, how they can protect themselves in terms of not sharing personal information. What are the privacies? So for instance, on Instagram, you know, you can actually have a private account where you can control the people who view your content and the people you interact with, right? Second of all is just simple things that people use every day. Google search, for instance. Just make them be aware that, you know, whatever you search on Google, sometimes those informations are, your history is kept, right? So me, for instance, personally, I don't use Google search. I use Quant because it doesn't store my information. I know Kat talked about algorithms and certain things that this companies, Lisa, algorithm and saying things that this companies are writing, because you click on one thing and then that becomes your entire feed, right? How are you able to identify what's actually genuine and what actually is a sperm, right? Within the system. I think another thing as well in terms of best practices is online communication, teaching everyone to engage respectfully online, and of course with empathy, because in the last year we've had COVID and a lot of things that happen. Empathy has always been the word that's been thrown around, right? Online etiquettes, right? Learn how to communicate respectfully with your peers. Set clear boundaries. Very important to set clear boundaries, but also working with the students and people we come across and building digital citizen rules. What are the do's, what are the don'ts, right? And also reviewing it, because technology is evolving every day and we need to catch up. Just also, I think I would recommend that if anybody has time to read the book by Vicki Davis, which is Reinventing Writings. She mentioned 9 key P's of digital citizenships. And for me, those are great best practices in terms of like your passwords, private information, plagiarism, rights of using properties, right? We go online and we collect information. Are we giving credit to the people who actually wrote stuff like that? What's your personal brand, right? What kind of personal brand do you want to portray online? Just to touch on a few of those things, I think for me, it's just keeping it simple and not too detailed. And that's what we've been able to do, just carrying everybody along, basically. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ijeoma. We really appreciate your insights there. Now let me shift gears to Nicole Punzi. Nicole, we would love to hear from you on your thoughts about how we might best prepare youth and educators to identify, anticipate, and react to online risks.
Yeah, thanks, Kat. I think with that question, there's a few different things to consider. The first aspect I'd say is just basic awareness raising about those risks and what they are, making sure that youth know that they're there. So like misinformation, cyberbullying, hate speech, echo chambers, these privacy settings and targeted ads, making sure that they know that when they see something that they understand how it got onto their screen or onto their feed on social media. And then the next step, which a few other panelists have already spoken about, is making sure that they have these appropriate skills needed to interact online, to anticipate the risks, or to interact with them and know that they're coming. So Ijeoma just mentioned empathy. So empathy and critical thinking, these general skills they're 21st century skills that are important offline as well as online. And they're crucial first steps for youth to be able to identify and counter misinformation and hate speech and things along those lines. And I think educators here have a really big role in conveying that and making sure that they both that youth and students both can display it, can practice it, and aren't just having a passive understanding. And then they also need that more concrete digital knowledge, understanding user data, how it's collected and used by social media companies, their privacy and communication security. So this is increasingly important on platforms like online gaming and dating apps, other direct messaging platforms. And it extends to identifying and interacting with bots also. So these are all, getting more specific into, what is there, what skills they need to have, how to approach it. And then even knowledge about policies and features that can help youth stay safe. So just knowing that they're there. So this is especially true for young women and girls, like I mentioned earlier. They're more likely to experience online harassment, like abusive language and cyberbullying. So youth need to understand the policies that are in place that can protect them, how to report it, how to block users and abusers. These are things that aren't consistent across all platforms, but should be conveyed. And then that final aspect is how to communicate these skills and how to communicate these aspects to youth in a way that they'll be responsive. We've already discussed how youth are, this is the generation that was born on the internet. They know how to use it. They're not always going to be responsive to everyone who's communicating, who's trying to teach them these digital skills when they think they might know all of them, that they know how to adapt this to the system. But we do at GPF, we have learned through our work that using trusted community members, and in particular educators in this case, they play a big role in building this knowledge and equipping them with the right tools and capacity for that preparation. And they're that trusted resource, or like a voice of reason, or a good example of a digital citizen. But when it comes to actually implementing, it's also important for youth to receive these messages, for them to be reinforced by their peers. So for instance, we've used this train the trainer model and the mentorship model in a few projects, both in Kenya through our Google Web Rangers project, as well as a countering violent extremism project in the US and New Jersey, among other places. But in particular, these two, you train youth, or you train these community members, and then in turn, they're able to either, in a more official capacity through an additional training, they can train their peers, or just through passive discussion or setting a good example, they're able to influence and impart their knowledge. So for instance, in the Web Rangers project, we trained maybe about 3,000 or so students, and that amplified into an additional 30,000 additional youth who received those general understanding, those general skills and awareness. And as an added bonus, it builds their leadership capacity so that they can, take that next step, maybe to counter a harmful message, like in a counter narrative campaign on social media. So I think those are kind of those three basic buckets I see.
That's great, Nicole. Thanks for that. So I think we have time for one more question, which I would love to hear from Lisa. Lisa, we talked a lot about risks and challenges, and I'm wondering if you might say, if you might give us a thought here on what other things can we do very similar to the meme campaign that you shared about earlier. What else can we do to be fostering positive and proactive online engagement?
Thanks, Kat, for that question. So I just put in the chat box again a link to a training on becoming a digital dialogue facilitator. Again, this is a great program for youth. It's run by the European Union. It's a free training on how to facilitate dialogue on difficult topics online. And it's being used all over the world. You'll find people from every continent taking the training. I took the training myself a couple years ago. It's really helpful. And it gives a lot of ideas about how we might use some of the platforms that already exist to have a more productive conversation and to really learn the skills of helping people to communicate on these platforms in a way that's respectful. So yeah, I'll just share that additional resource so people know there are a lot of people out there thinking along the lines that we're talking about today. And there's really an active role for everyone who's listening in today. It's just a matter of digging in and starting to practice. Thanks.
That's great. So now we're going to move to our closing comments from each panelist. Each of you certainly bring a unique perspective and viewpoints to this landscape. And I would love to hear a short closing 2-minute thought from each of our panelists. Lisa, since you're on screen, let's start with you.
Well, I'm just looking through the Q&A list. I'm not sure if everybody can see all those, but there's a lot of people writing in with some great ideas already about all the possible ways we can use digital technologies. One of them is virtual reality. You know, we can start seeing what coexistence and peace processes might look like that are more inclusive in the future. There's really a tremendous variety of ways to think about dealing with current conflicts, to imagining a more peaceful future, and helping people really get into that mindset that we have one planet to share. That planet is going through a climate crisis. And while we may live in different countries, we have to be working together. The planet itself is too fragile for us to be divided up as we're thinking about dealing with the pandemic and the climate crisis. And really, digital technologies, they can divide us, but they offer this incredible opportunity for us to be working together, especially those of us who are thinking about peace. So that's why I'm so glad to be here today talking with all of you. Thanks.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. So now if we could hear from Maryam. Maryam, do you have a closing short comment to share with us?
Yes, of course. So related to the area of education and promoting digital skills, I think the one thing I want to remind us is that education has witnessed a profound and rapid shift from a paper-based system to digitization over the past 2 decades. If we recall, teachers previously had to create assignments, students would complete them, attendance was taken, grades were issued, blah, 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 using a paper-based system. But now education is home to a digitally integrated system of support where the functions of school are virtually digitized, integrated, and updated through online platforms, software, as well as media. In higher education in particular, not only teaching and learning, but also we have research and innovation, public communication, partnership building are also reliant on digital technologies to be able to achieve whatever goal they have in mind. And again, the COVID-19 impact on education sector, to be precise, has accelerated e-learning in many, many countries, and it has come to challenge traditional modes of teaching and learning programs. So for us to continue to provide continued education in the face of the pandemic, that also has helped us to emphasize issues of online safety and digital citizenship. We need to make sure that, things like connectivity issues are addressed. We need to make sure that learning gaps are met. We need to make sure that infrastructure limitations are addressed. We need to make sure that device access and shortages are addressed. And so these are some of the aspects that educators can begin to think about and work with either private sector organizations, the World Bank, not only the World Bank, but organizations like the World Bank within the International Development Organizations, as well as, fellow education service providers, to be able to come to a point where some of these issues that prevent the acceleration of digital skills are addressed in a manner that allows for youth, in particular vulnerable women, children, to be able to participate safely online, and also have that digital footprint that is devoid of any harm. Right, so I would like to just maybe cite an example of one of our projects that we did in Kaduna. It's called the Click on Kaduna Digital Skills Programming. I know that the project was aimed towards promoting digital skills among young people and vulnerable women, but some of the things that came out, after those students were enrolled on the program, it was a 12-month program. We know that it has created and facilitated jobs for some of those young people. For a lot of women, having access to online platforms, and because they've acquired the skills to do so, has actually helped some women to be able to escape, abusive situations and domestic violence. It has also allowed women to be able to become entrepreneurs, for example, but it took having them to be digitally skilled to get to a point where they're able to turn their lives around. So I would say for educators, we need to think about some of these challenges, because on the whole, they have a very holistic impact on the area of online safety and digital citizenship, even if indirectly related to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So now let me please call on Nicole Punzi for your closing remark.
Yeah, sure. I have a more of a very brief just reflection on youth, and that's just that they're the drivers of change, and they have that creativity to transform how they use digital space, and they do need the tools and support to realize this potential, to become leaders themselves, to train their peers, to educate themselves on, and to stay up to date on things that they may not be aware about. But they have those foundations and background knowledge to leverage technology, to come up with creative technological solutions to these technology risks, to these digital risks. And I saw in the Q&A, someone had mentioned an online fact checker to be helpful in combating misinformation. And these types of tools like that are being developed, are always being thought of, or are being added as extensions to browsers and different platforms. So there's this evolving technology, and I think that youth have that capacity to drive some of that change, to drive some of that thinking, to drive those creative ideas, to address some of these risks. But they just also need the background skills and understanding and digital citizenship in order to have that drive to do so. So I'll just leave it there. It's pretty short, but also just want to recognize that they have a significant role here.
Thank you, Nicole. So Ijeoma, would you please share with us your closing remarks or reflection?
Okay, so mine is really short. For me is we need to remind ourselves of the positive and the negative effect of the digital space. Great things have come out of it, and horrible things have come out of it. I always, and I keep on saying it's the digital tattoo. It's your footprint. For me is, think of a tattoo as, if I get it, it's permanent, but I can also get laser treatment that would take it off, right? But the scar would always be there. It would always be there. So for me, I like to read a lot of books, and I came across something by Matthew Johnson, who spoke during the Digital Citizenship Educational Web Conference in 2017. He said, young people are born into a world in which the opportunities presented by the digital evolution are taken for granted. And this was said in 2017 and it still resonates today. For me, I think that young people may also be taking this for granted, the risk and the challenges. We need to find better ways of addressing these situations, and just being better digital citizens and just being our brother's keeper as well. I love what Maryam said in terms of what they've done in the North. If you have time, check out Tech for Dev. They're a non-profit organization, and you know, it started off with a friend of mine and his wife, and they've done amazing things. Last week they actually did a whole digital awareness in the North, where they educated a lot of people who on a normal day would not even be on the list to be educated, the disabled people, even people with no level of education, right? And that program is still running to today, and I think there's amazing work. I can see in the Q&A section as well, people are asking the name of the book. I put it in the chat group. It's called Reinventing Writings by Vicky Davis. It's book in depth in terms of the 9 Ps of digital awareness. And before I go, I'd like to leave you, if you haven't seen the documentary on Netflix, which is called Social Dilemma, please watch it, and also watch it with your kids, with your families, with your loved ones. It's very informative. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So I just want to take a moment and pause to appreciate each one of our panelists and their participation today. It was great to have so many experts and also from all over the world. Now it's time to take our short poll. So please look out for that coming onto your screen now. It only takes a few minutes, and we would love for you to participate. Your feedback helps a lot. It enables us to tailor future conference and webinar content to meet your needs. I'll pause here for just a moment while everyone has a chance to click. Okay. Well, thank you for participating in our poll. And now I just wanted to say a short word about an exciting event coming up later this year, and request that you save the date for our upcoming Global Peace Convention 2021. This year will be a hybrid and feature virtual convenings on various tracks, including education and peace building. So please save the dates, and we'll be in touch with more information about the upcoming Global Peace Convention 2021. And with that, this now concludes day 1 of our 2-day virtual conference. Please join us again tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. GMT for day 2 of the Peacesharing Europe 2021 conference. We have great sessions tomorrow on community peace building, youth civic engagement, and a fireside chat on future-ready education. Please check out your email for tomorrow's links. We look forward to seeing you there. Thank you again for your participation. This concludes today's programming. Goodbye.